All aboard! Today on Out West as we head to San Luis Valley to learn about the Cumbres and Toltec Scenic Railroad. We hang 10 at the Great Sand Dunes National Park and Preserve, then we'll get up and personal with some alligators. Yep, that's right, alligators. We're gonna go check out the gators at Colorado Gators Reptile Park. This and more, all coming up next right here on Out West. Hello and welcome to Out West. I'm your host, Carrie Wilbanks. Today we've traveled south to the San Luis Valley where we're going to stop at the Great Sand Dunes for some sand surfing and also visit some Colorado alligators. But first we're here at the Cumbres and Toltec Scenic Railroad where we're about to head on board. Come on, let's go. I'm here with John Bush, who's the president and general manager of the Cumbres and Toltec Railroad. Thank you so much for joining us, John.
Well, Carrie, thank you for having me.
We are so excited to be here. I cannot wait to get the history of the railroad. Can you tell us some about it?
A little bit. The railroad was built in 1880, actually built in 9 months, from March to the end of December of 1880, across the 64 miles of mountain. It was built because they were trying to get up to Silverton, Colorado, where the big mining boom was going on. The railroad did incredibly well until 1894 when they ended the free coinage of silver. The railroad fell into decline, but it was the only way in and out of the country. So it survived, but didn't do well. And it was like many of us feel in our jobs, you know, you're too important to get a day off, but you're not important enough to get a raise.
Yes.
And that's where the railroad was. As it turns out, that was a blessing for us because it never changed.
Right.
So we have this 1880s artifact that survived up until the 1960s. Finally, in the 1960s, they gave up on it. The Rio Grande filed for abandonment, and the two states, Colorado and New Mexico, jointly came together and bought the railroad. And we've been operating it now for 47 years.
For 47 years, has it been focused for tourists to be able to see these wonderful views along the way?
It's a completely tourist-based railroad. We don't haul any freight. We just haul tourists to show them this amazing time capsule, this what we like to call 64 miles of 1880.
This is incredible to see all of the cars line up. You do feel like you've stepped back into the past. Tell us some about the train specifically and how it's different from some other trains out there.
We have coaches, which are normal coach-type seating like you might see on a bus. And then we have a tourist car, which has little tables with seat 2 or seat 4. And then we have this car, which is a parlor car. This is the fanciest car, where each person has a seat that faces directly out a window. And the parlor and tourist cars have attendants that see to your every need.
Every single need.
Including
coffee, donuts, fruit.
Breakfast, adult beverages later in the day, rum cake in the afternoon, and souvenirs.
The route itself, can you tell us about where it starts and where you end up?
Well, the eastern end is here in Antonito, Colorado, and the western end, 64 railroad miles away, is in Chama, New Mexico. In between, it crosses the state line 11 times. And remember that out here, the state line is a straight line. So it's up and down every side canyon, in and out, through 2 tunnels, a couple of giant trestles, over a 10,000-foot pass. And there are no power lines, no paved roads, no parking lots. This railroad enjoys a fan base and a popularity that is far bigger than one would expect it ought to be. We have customers from Germany and Switzerland and Japan and Australia. The other part of the appeal, really for families, is that you go along, you're free to move around the train. You go along at about 12 miles an hour, and people slow down and open up. Your cell phone isn't going to work here.
Fantastic.
The kids' video games aren't going to work here. Their internet games aren't going to work here. So what we discover is that husbands start talking to wives again, and dads talk to sons, and there is this coming together that is amazing. People are different when they get off the train than when they got on.
What is the season for the scenic route?
We run from the Saturday of Memorial Day weekend into the end of the third week of October.
Okay.
And then we do run some Christmas trains in December. Now the Christmas trains are not paid trains. Your fare to come and ride the train is a non-perishable food item or a toy for Toys for Tots.
John, thank you so much for all of the information. I cannot wait to see what all of this scenery has in store for us.
Well, I know you'll be impressed, but I tell you what, why don't we go up front and I'll let you blow the whistle before the train takes off.
Absolutely, let's go.
All right, let's do it.
Don't go anywhere. You do not want to miss the Colorado Alligator Farm coming up next right here on Out West. Welcome back to Out West. I'm your host, Carrie Wilbanks. When I think of Colorado, one of the last things I would expect to see is alligators, let alone hundreds of them. But we're going to show you a spot near Alamosa where you can see just that. Come on, let's go. I'm here with Scott, who is an alligator wrestling coach here at the Colorado Gator and Reptile Park. Scott, I am really excited to chat with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is pretty crazy. You should have seen me try to get into the pen, you guys. I was pretty nervous because we're actually inside of the alligator pen. I would like that on the record. There is alligators that could come at us any second now, but they won't because
most of the alligators don't want anything to do with people. They're not like a crocodilian or a caiman where they are more ambush predators and will chase you. Alligators are more opportunistic. They'll take what they can get and be on their way. Some alligators, not all, are going to lunge at you, may chase you around, or like a nesting female, they will chase you around and protect their nest.
But they might chase you, but are they going to attack you?
Oh yeah.
Oh man,
yeah, absolutely.
Okay. But right now, I was very nervous to come in here, but you told me, don't worry because
no,
they
these
know.
alligators know that one, I'll catch them and they'll run away. So most of them are going to go hide over in the corner until they either realize I'm going to feed them or I don't have a rope bag or the medical bag with me.
This is wild. Tell me about this. How do you even go about catching an alligator?
So what we do out here is, one, the wrestling class, most people think, oh, it's an adrenaline rush, I'm gonna get out here and conquer alligators. No, it's nothing like that.
Okay.
And it's not the WWE SmackDown either. We don't do that. So what we do is, between having 200 to 300 alligators, we have to do some medical, at least some kind of assessment, to go out and look over our alligators to make sure that they don't have signs of malnutrition, injuries of any kind, and if they do, then we need to medicate them. And having 200 to 300 alligators, it's more easier when you have students that want to come in and sign up and want to learn the style that we use to catch alligators. So what we do here is we teach the students the proper handling techniques and how to capture little baby alligators first, catching them in the water, checking them over for the injuries and wounds, and then coming over here to the second size of alligator that we have here on the farm, and then teaching them the proper way of dragging them out of the water, because obviously these alligators are a little bit bigger, so it has a little more technique with it.
And there is a lot of different types of alligators out here. Tell me about some of the different kinds you can see out here.
Well, the species of alligator that you guys are going to see today are all American alligator. There's only 2 species of alligator in the entire world. That's the Chinese alligator and the American alligator. And there's only about 130 specimen of the Chinese alligator. It's not a very common one, and it is on the endangered species.
Oh my gosh.
But with the American alligator, these are all common American alligators that have just been farmed and somebody sold them as pets. And then there's 23 species of crocodilian altogether. That does not include the 2 alligators. That includes caimans and different species of crocodile.
And here at the park, tell us about some of the kinds that people can see.
Here at the park, people will see American alligators. They'll see 3 albino alligators. We also see crocodile, or have crocodiles here.
This is so interesting to me to think about becoming an instructor. We've got to get your background.
I started off, I've been raising reptiles for over 15 years, professionally and as a hobbyist. When I was down in New Mexico, I started off as an animal services officer for the county sheriff's department, and I specialized in the reptile background. So if there was something with reptiles that would come in, or somebody was illegally importing alligators or even caiman, I've gone into drug houses that were raided that they had 6-foot guard caiman in the bathtub.
Guard caiman? Like
It was
crocodiles?
it was supposed to be watching the house, but
No
they were
way.
afraid of it more than anybody, and they ended up locking it in the bathroom, and that's how they ended up getting busted.
Is there ever an alligator you've met that you've been too scared to wrestle?
No. I love the animals. I don't do it for the money, and I don't do it for the entertainment. I do it for the education and for the love of the animals. I grew up around them, and they deserve a little more, a little more respect, and at least a voice.
There are some famous alligators here that people may have seen before they've arrived. Tell us
There
how.
are indeed. There are the Happy Gilmore gator Morris, who's also played in the Interview with a Vampire. And then we have the Lubriderm commercial, and her name's Freeway, and she got her name for the exact reason. She ended up on the Los Angeles Freeway.
So when something like that happens, you guys are really the go-to to
In a sense, when they retire them, yes. Like her, once they become of a certain size, there is a handling point where, okay, 1 or 2 people can't do it, maybe 3 or 4 people can't do it. And Morris is over 10 feet long and over 500 pounds. So when he destroyed a coach set, they were like, okay, it's time for him to retire.
Very interesting. Scott, this has been absolutely fascinating. Not just for the reason, again, I just can't believe that there's no boundary between me and these gators here. I know that you have some other things you want to show us. We might even see you wrestle one.
Yes, ma'am.
So I think we ought to hit it.
All right, let's go feed some gators.
Sounds good.
All right.
Come on down to Colorado Gator and Reptile Park. This little guy Rocky is waiting. See you later, alligator. Up next on Out West, we travel to the Great Sand Dunes National Park and Preserve. Stay with us. Hello and welcome back to Out West. I'm your host, Carrie Wilbanks. Today we're in the San Luis Valley, and up next we're going to show you one of Colorado's greatest wonders, the Great Sand Dunes National Park, and we're also going to try some sand surfing. Let's shred. I'm here with Patrick, who's a ranger here at the Great Sand Dunes National Park. Patrick, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
This is phenomenal scenery. I think a lot of times people are surprised that we have sand dunes in Colorado. Do you agree?
They do seem very out of place for most people. You see these giant Sahara-like dunes in the middle of the Rocky Mountains. Right behind the dunes are 13 and 14,000 foot mountains.
It's majestic to look at. This is my first time visiting the Great Sand Dunes National Park. It's somewhere I've wanted to visit because I grew up in Colorado. It's amazing to finally be here. And I would love to get the background of how the dunes formed.
That's one of the first questions that people ask is why are these big sand dunes here in the middle of the Rocky Mountains? Basically, there was large prehistoric lakes in the San Luis Valley. The San Luis Valley is about the size of the state of Connecticut.
Wow.
It's a huge valley. So these lakes were massive and collected a lot of sand for thousands of years. And then as those lakes have dried up through natural climate change, the sand has been carried into a pocket of the Sangre de Cristo Mountains where the winds funnel the sand into one location, piling them up to 750 feet.
They, of course, are beautiful to look at, but I think it's even more fun to be able to explore within the dunes. What are some of the activities that take place?
This is a great place for all ages. This place is really made for families because, really all ages, because it's a safe place. We don't have any rattlesnakes here. We don't have any scorpions here. A lot of people assume, well, if it's sand dunes, it must be desert poisonous creatures. There really aren't any poisonous creatures because we're so high up in the Rocky Mountains. You can play in Medno Creek. Medno Creek is Colorado's natural beach, where there's water flowing off the mountains that spreads out across the sand. The peak flow can catch a wave, use a floating device and actually ride waves down the creek. And then of course the dunes themselves. We've got the tallest dunes in North America where you can go just hiking, photography, and sand sledding. And sandboarding is one of the most popular sports here.
Sand sledding, I've heard so much about this, and the boarding. Is that one of the most popular activities out here?
Right, it is. You know, this is a wilderness area. A lot of people say, well, can I go dune buggy riding here, ATVs? It's a wilderness area. That means there's no mechanized or motorized vehicles, but it is okay to go sand sledding as long as you don't go over the fragile vegetation. That doesn't hurt the dunes. And so it's a lot of fun for all ages to go sledding. We have some of the best night skies here of anywhere in America, because we're far away from the city lights of Denver and the Front Range, and we're high in elevation. The visitor center here is at 8,200 feet, and it's very dry air. So that combination provides incredible night skies.
The insects and animals we may encounter out there, seems like there's a lot of options. Tell us what we might find.
Well, we have 7 species of insects that are found only here at Great Sand Dunes, but nowhere else in the world. So we've got the Great Sand Dunes tiger beetle. At night, we've got the kangaroo rat that comes out. The kangaroo rats are like a little gerbil-like creature. They're harmless, but they can jump up to over 5 feet in the air.
What?
So if you're walking out at night, you may see a kangaroo rat bounce up in front of your face.
Up to my eyes.
Right. So not only are there dunes creatures that we've just talked about, but because we're surrounded by mountains, grasslands, and wetlands, elk can sometimes go out on the dunes. Bighorn sheep may come out of the mountains onto the dunes.
I just started a mental checklist of all these things I want to see, and I'm not leaving until I see all of them. Especially the thought of a bighorn sheep up against the dunes coming down from the mountain is one of those perfect Colorado views, I think. This has been such a great interview, Patrick. Thank you so much for all of the information. I cannot wait to get out there and explore.
All right, have fun.
Jeremy is a local in neighboring Alamosa, a professor at Adams State University, and most importantly, you are awesome when it comes to sand surfing, something that we're going to do today. Can you tell me some about sand surfing and what it's all about?
Well, thank you, Carrie. I'm super stoked to be able to rip and shred the dunes with you today. Yeah, there's a bunch of different ways to sandboard. There's actually sand sleds, and then a few different sand boards that have been the progression.
This looks like we're gonna get a lot of fun out there today. I have to say, of course, coming in, I think it's important for everyone to know you have to rent a board before you enter the park. So tell us people where they can rent boards from.
Yeah, definitely. You can get boards from Oasis, and that is right outside of the park. It's the gas station right before you enter the park. And then you can also get boards from Christie Mountain Sports in Alamosa.
Awesome, and I can't wait because I know that the sled seems like maybe the easiest way for me to go down because I've wakeboarded before, but snowboarding and I have not met, but I'm still gonna try the sand surfing today. But I think the sled, I'm sure you can pick up some mega speed on both.
Oh yeah, probably about 50 miles an hour plus on the sleds and somewhere between 20 and 30 miles an hour on the sandboards.
And there's a special wax on the back that lets you really cruise down the hill. Without it, I don't think you're going anywhere.
Right, yeah, so even if you only have a sled, if you put that wax on, it's gonna help any surface ride.
And Jeremy, besides being a really awesome sand surfer, you're also a musician. Tell me about this.
Yeah, so it's a way of life, you know, the Rip Us Shred Us, that's our band, and it's all about ripping and shredding. We wrote a special song for the sand dunes, and so we're excited to share that song with you all today.
Can we hear it up on the dunes?
Let's go!
I think they're calling our names. Let's go rip and shred.
We are Rip Us Shred Us. Oh, not us. With a hook.
Such an incredible time here in the San Luis Valley, and hope it's a spot you add to your travel list, because remember, only you can truly experience Colorado. For Out West, I'm your host, Carrie Wilbanks. We'll see you next time.